We have officially survived the summer. If you can't tell, I'm not a summer girly. I am very much an autumn-winter girly, and I'm so glad that it's over. Now, it's not that bad here in the Pacific Northwest, especially compared to my years in Texas. My last year in Austin, we had over 100 days of over 100 degrees, and I genuinely thought I was gonna die. So I can't really complain about a Pacific Northwest summer. It's really just wearing shorts and sitting outside at coffee shops anyway, so who am I to complain about that? I will, however, complain about how bad a lot of the books I read this summer are. I don't think I've had a reading slump this long, or this many DNFs in a row, ever. I will save you from the purely mediocre books and just talk about the best and the worst books that I read this summer, and my favorite things that I crafted. We are starting with the worst of the worst that I'm so glad I read on my Kindle as a library loan instead of actually buying, and that is Hollow Heathens by Nicole Fiorina. I don't want to be a bitch. I've never finished a novel. I've never published anything. This book also has like 4.5, 5 stars on Goodreads and Storygraph, so I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum, except for this one because it was very bad. This was recommended to me by someone, so if that was you, I'm sorry. It's not personal. This just very much was not for me. When I saw it was a Kindle Unlimited book, I tried to have an open mind. Yes, every Kindle Unlimited book I've ever started has been terrible, but that doesn't mean that they will all be terrible. But I got off my high horse, I gave this a solid try, and I made it like 7%. It's just not good. From what I could see of what little plot there was, the main character is a mortician, and she is so pale, and her hair is white like a ghost, and people sometimes think she is a ghost because she works in a morgue. And her uncle is sick, so she goes to visit him in Halloween Town. That's all I could pick up. I really tried. I can deal with a middling plot and middling characters if the overall vibe is worth it. But this wasn't. It genuinely felt like reading Halloween content packs for The Sims. It wasn't really doing anything. It wasn't really gothy. It was just the town goes out at night. All the shops are still open at midnight. And it's foggy, and it's real spooky. And some of these guys are wearing masks. The other problem is that it's just very poorly written. I felt like I was reading a rushed first draft that no one ever looked at again. I was getting lost in run-on sentences. The grammar's really bad. I was genuinely getting confused in the inconsistencies of some of these scene setups. I love a mediocre book to read as I fall asleep, but I was so distracted that I was mentally marking it up with a red pen the whole time, and I couldn't fall asleep. I gave up. My second DNF wasn't bad, it's just not for me. I really wanted to like this one. I just wanted something fun and light to read at night. So I got another library loan of Hannah Tate Beyond Repair by Laura Piper Lee. Now, there's nothing overtly bad about this book. It was well written, it was cute, it was a rom-com. It was just a little too rom-com. It's about our eponymous Hannah Tate, whose baby daddy is an asshole and dumps her on the day she thinks she's gonna get proposed to. So she temporarily moves in with her mom and stepdad, who have a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Georgia, to help them fix up their spare cabin as an Airbnb. And of course, their neighbor is super hot and a woodworker. It just was a little bit too paint-by-numbers rom-com. I don't really read rom-coms because they're just not quite there enough for me a lot of the time. So that's a me problem, not a book problem. I didn't like the main character. I felt like she was a little whiny and overbearing, which is like fair, but there wasn't enough of her to make up for that, enough of the other characters to make up for that. She just keeps pining for her terrible ex, who's just a douchey finance bro and has never been nice to her. And I hate that. You can't fix him. He will not get better for you. Dump him. Dump him now. Other problem that I should have known going in, because she is a new mom, is that there's a lot of talk about the baby. I don't do babies. I don't have younger siblings. I'm child-free by choice. I just don't do babies. And there's a lot of talk about the baby and a lot of talk about holding the baby and looking at the baby, and the baby's so cute, and I just can't take it. I love my dog. I'm sure that I can talk about my dog like that sometimes, but it was just too much of the book. I couldn't take it. I DNF'd it. If you're fine with these things, I'm sure you'll like it. I was just looking for more of like a DIY meet cute, and I had never got there. I was genuinely so sad I didn't like this one. I really, really wanted to like it, and it was just very mid. That was Bride by Ali Hazelwood, which again, very glad I did not buy and just rented from my library. If you're not using the Libby app, what are you doing? You don't even need a Kindle for it. You can just read it in the app on your phone. I'm a library girly until the day I die, and you should be supporting your local library. Go get a library card. If you don't have a library card, pause this video, go to your local library's website. You can usually sign up for free online and get a card right then. Anyway, Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Misery Lark, our main character, is the daughter of the most powerful vampire councilman, and for diplomatic peacekeeping, she has to marry the hot, secretive alpha werewolf. It sounds great. I love it. I'm here for it, but I didn't like it. I really liked The Love Hypothesis. I loved check and mate. I'm fine with how Ali Hazelwood describes all of her main male characters as big, hulking, manly men, because I'm 5'3", so everyone is big and hulking to me. And I can excuse that, I get it. I'm okay with her basically using the same characters every time because I like her characters. I understand it's a flaw, it's not a flaw for me. But this was bad. This should have checked my boxes. Vampires, werewolves, marriage of convenience, enemies to lovers. I was just really bored. The world building was really inconsistent. I can't really tell you more than what I already gave you in the summary. I think vampires have purple eyes and like they usually drink from blood bags and they're geographically separated from the werewolves, but I couldn't really tell you the werewolf pack structure or how the other packs work or why this is like the alpha because I don't remember. It just felt underbaked. The characters were flat and predictable, more so than like a romance novel character usually is. I just can't imagine a writer who's not already established getting to finish this. It wasn't even the smut. I'm not a smut reader. I am a coffee shop reader. I can't be reading those outside. It's not what I come to a novel for. I have no shame on you. I wish I liked it so I could get all the funny merch and stuff. It's just not for me, and again, I'm not taking points off because of that. I'm really disappointed. I really wanted to like this one. I'm calling this our halfway point because overall it wasn't that bad. I just think the bad outweighed the good with our classic Night Shift by Stephen King. This is his first short story collection. It was published in 1980. Some of the stories were published in magazines beforehand and some of the stories were brand new. I don't love short stories, so we were coming in at a disadvantage. I really only read this because I picked up the sweet first edition from a secondhand store and felt like I had to read it. And it does have classics, don't get me wrong. We have The Mangler. We have Lawnmower Man, which somehow no one spoiled for me, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you should read, if nothing else, The Lawnmower Man and Children of the Corn. But we also had Battleground, which is about army toy figures coming to life, Strawberry Spring, the infamous trucks. I'm leaning in because this one's important. I love Maximum Overdrive. Maximum Overdrive is the perfect movie to watch with your friends. You need to gather your friends and watch Maximum Overdrive this Halloween season, but you do not need to read Trucks, because Trucks is bad. Maximum Overdrive is also bad, but fun bad, not boring bad. Were these revolutionary when they came out? Maybe, but I feel like horror has kind of moved on as a genre, and what may have been foundational when it came out really just felt like reading Goosebumps for adults, which isn't bad, it's just also not good. For what I crafted this summer, I made this flower hat, which is beautiful, albeit a little bit too big. I will put all the patterns in the doobly-doo below. So I made this for Ren Fair because last year when we went to the Ren Fair, it was freezing cold and it poured and we were soaking wet. So I thought a warm hat would be great, but it was kind of warm this summer, so I did not wear it, and it's also a little big. That is entirely my fault. That is not the pattern's fault. I will also say that if you make this, the pattern recommends a cheaper, stiffer yarn so it holds its shape. It is important. It is very important. I made this first one with a softer yarn and it turned out so bad that I had to start over. So heed the warning, use stiff yarn. It is adorable and I love it, and I will probably make more in different colors because it was really fun to make once you got into the swing of it. I also designed this cross-stitch pattern inspired by Pet Cemetery. So if you're just stumbling upon me on YouTube and you're not finding me from Instagram or TikTok, I design cross-stitch patterns. I have a website that is linked in my bio and in my description, and a Patreon. So this is September's Patreon pattern. So if you are watching this before October 8th, I think, you can join at any paid tier for access to this pattern. It is just the pattern, it is not the finished piece. This fabric is the lovely Sloth from Witch's Garden Craft that I will also link below. She is a beautiful baby angel and her fabrics are beautiful. Look at this. This is so perfect. You can also drop my Patreon for free. You'll get early access to these YouTube videos, and it basically works as a newsletter, so you just get an email when I have updates. My husband wanted an octopus for his birthday, so I made him an octopus. I don't want you to hear this. This pattern was so not fun to make. I would not say it's a difficult pattern. These tentacles are just really hard. You work into slip stitches a lot. If you know, you know. But he turned out so cute, and he lives on Mr. Gremlin's microphone arm. I love him. Okay, we have made it to the best books. At the bottom of our best, which is still very good, is Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. I have quickly become a T. Kingfisher fanatic. I love everything I've read from her. I started with the Hollow ones over the summer, and then I picked up Paladin's Grace and loved it. And I just read Nettle and Bone, which I cannot wait to talk about in my September wrap-up because it was amazing. I typically don't like romantasy, but the characters in this book completely sold me. Our main character is a paladin whose god died 3 years ago. That's all I need to know. I'm sold. Great. I don't need the plot. I don't need the setting. This is perfect. This is an interesting concept in fantasy. So Stephen barely lives for those 3 years. Not sure what to do, not sure where to go, doesn't feel like he's a real person until he meets our heroine Grace in a dangerous alley and they witness a murder together. I love T. Kingfisher fantasy because she doesn't just do a vague fantasy backdrop to hold up a list of tropes. What she does is she assumes that we're all familiar with fantasy. This is like a basic knowledge of D&D since we have Paladins, but she uses your familiarity with the concepts to turn tropes on their head. This isn't just a paladin, this is a paladin whose god dies. What do you do when a god chooses you to give you magic and then that god dies and you're just stuck? Characters are delightful. I'm also very biased because T. Kingfisher also loves Dragon Age. Dragon Age is my favorite game series. So excited that the Veilguard comes out on Halloween. I have spent 10 long years waiting. I just assumed that it would die in dev hell and never come out, and I'm very excited for it. So if you like the quips of Dragon Age or Baldur's Gate 3, you will love T. Kingfisher's fantasy because it just feels like the companion dialogue you get when you're walking around, which is my favorite part of the games. Since it's romantasy, you kind of already know the ending before it happens, but I love the story that it takes to get there. I love what little world building we have. I love all of the characters. She is writing a book based on every one of these paladins whose god died. I'm probably going to take a little bit of a break because I read a lot of T. Kingfisher back to back, and I have heard that these are a little similar every time. But when I need a romantasy, I need a fun plain read, I will be picking up more of these. Mid-slump, I was DNFing left and right. I needed a confirmed book that I knew I would love, and that is All Systems Red in Artificial Condition. The setting is well-tread ground. We're in a hyper-capitalist future, corporations control daily life. Cool. We all understand the baseline here. Since it's hyper-capitalist, when you are scientists on an expedition, you have to have a company-approved security bot for your own protection. But also, since we're hyper-capitalist, everything goes to the lowest bidder, so your quality is not usually great. Enter our beautiful main character, Murderbot. Murderbot is a cyborg security droid. He's assigned to shadow a group of scientists as they explore a new planet, but all he wants to do is go back to the base so he can watch all of the soap operas that he's downloaded when he broke his governor. I have never related more to someone because frequently when I'm at work, I would also like to go home and just watch my TV. Aside from having that in common, I do really love robots. I've always loved R2-D2. I have a deep neurotic bond to C-3PO. Data has always been my favorite The Next Generation character, and I have a chopper tattoo. I say please and thank you to my Siri and my Google. People make fun of me for it, but they're working hard and they deserve the praise. Obviously, I am the target demographic and I do love these books. As Murderbot gets to know the people he's been assigned to, they care about him in a way that most crews don't, and he starts to bond with them, whether he wants to or not. And as the story unfolds, we learn about Murderbot's backstory, or lack thereof, because after a mining accident, his memory was completely wiped before that, and he wants to find out what really happened. They're not hard sci-fi, they're not crunchy. This does feel a lot like T. Kingfisher, using your familiarity with the setting and the genre and the tropes to turn them on their head a little bit and tell a different, more unique story. They really focus more on humanity and what it means to be human even when you're a cyborg, which I think is the most interesting thing. My only complaint with these books is that they are very short, and I have only been able to find them in hardback. I do want hard copies because they're really, really good, and paying $19 for 200 pages is rough in this economy. That is literally my only complaint about these. The bright spot in my Stephen King marathon was You Like It Darker, his latest short story collection. I found it on sale at Costco and I couldn't not buy it. I knew I'd buy it eventually. I might as well buy it for sale at Costco. Costco, if you're watching, please sponsor me. I love you. It was a big whiplash going from reading Night Shift to reading You Like It Darker. This just came out this year, and I will say that this is some of his best writing ever. Some of the short stories still aren't great, like The Red Screen, where aliens are taking over women and making them more ornery and nagging at you. The only way you can tell is if their phone screen flashes red. They're not all keepers, but the good ones are so good. I think I also liked this because some of them were novellas, not just short stories. Rattlesnakes takes what is ostensibly a very stupid, not scary topic, makes it terrifying. I got literal goosebumps reading it. It's technically a sequel to Cujo, which I have not read because it's gonna make me really sad, but it's also like a sequel to Duma Key, which was one of my favorite mid-tier Stephen King books. There's also The Answer Man, which was beautiful, and I'm still thinking about it, and I will continue to think about it. There's also Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream, which I am dying to see Mike Flanagan make a miniseries out of. If you've been wanting to try Stephen King and you're not sure where to start, especially because of how, let's say, of its time some of his books are, I think this was a really good starting point. The best book I read this summer, which is saying something because I really hyped myself up for this one, is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. I am heartbroken that the only other books Scott Hawkins has written are coding textbooks and math textbooks. This is so interesting and unique and different. I will warn you that this is very confusing and frequently doesn't make sense. This is very Harrow the Ninth. If you like The Locked Tomb, but specifically Harrow the Ninth, you should give this a try. Our main character, Carolyn, spends most of her life locked in her house, if not locked in her cell of a room. She's raised with her siblings that aren't really her siblings by her father, who isn't really their father. He might also be God? When Father/God disappears, leaving the library unguarded, she knows it's finally time to take matters into her own hands. I can't tell you anymore. You have to go in blind because this is an absolute ride. I will also warn you that this has literally any trigger warning you can think of. Even knowing they were coming, I was slapped in the face by some of them. It's not horror, but it has horror elements. It's not urban fantasy, but it is fantastical. It's not dark academia, but it takes place in a library. The characters are kind of vague, but also extremely fleshed out, especially their motives once you understand what's happening. The setting descriptions can be sparse, but I feel like I could draw some of these places from memory. This is a book for dedicated readers. You gotta be ready to buy the ticket and take the ride and just work through the puzzle box, but if that's something that you would like, please check this out. So that was the best and worst. I alluded to some mid-Stephen King books, but I'm working on a overarching Stephen King video. My King books are on a different bookshelf. I consider myself a constant reader. I've read 30-something Stephen King books. I've made my journey to the Dark Tower. I remember The Face of My Father. I love Stephen King within reason. Some of his books are bad, and we do need to talk about the way he describes women up until like the mid-90s. But I do still love Stephen King, so I'm working on an overarching Stephen King video, or a couple videos. I never know what to do for outros, so bye, I guess. Thanks for watching. Please join my Patreon for free to get videos early. Okay, we love you. Bye.